Good evening, Commissioners, staff and members of the public. I declare the Special Council meeting of 22nd December 2025 open at 5:30 p.m. I wish to acknowledge the Kariyara people as the traditional custodians of the land we're meeting on. I recognise their strength and resilience and pay my respects to Elders past, present and emerging. This meeting is being live streamed and audio recorded to facilitate community participation and for minute-taking purposes, which may be released upon request to third parties. In accordance with Clause 6.16 of the Town of Port Hedland Standing Orders, Local Law 2014, members of the public are not permitted to use any visual or audio electronic device or instrument to record the proceedings of any meeting unless that person has been given permission by the presiding member to do so. Members of the public are also reminded that in accordance with Clause 6.174 of the Standing Orders, mobile telephones must be switched off and not used during the meeting. I note that all Commissioners are present and their attendance will be listed under item 3.1 of the minutes. Item 3.2, attendance by telephone instantaneous communications. I note that Commissioner Jurovic has sought and been given permission to attend by video conference this evening. CEO, do we have any apologies?
None received.
CEO, do we have any approved leaves of absence?
None received, Commissioner.
Does anyone wish to declare an interest for any of the items in the agenda this evening?
No.
Nope. Okay. Item 4, public time. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an opportunity for members of the public to ask questions of Council. I note as a special Council meeting that public questions and statements must relate to the items on tonight's agenda. Clause 6.73 of the Town of Port Hedland Standing Orders Local Law requires members of the public wishing to ask a question to complete a question form and place the completed form in the tray provided. If myself, as a presiding member, determines that questions or statements are out of order due to the use of offensive or objectionable expressions or are defamatory, they will not be considered, recorded nor responded to. Public questions are allocated a minimum of 15 minutes under the Act. Public questions and statements received in writing will be provided the opportunity to present first, followed by other members of the public. Item 4.1, public question time. I declare public question time open at 5:33 p.m. CEO, have we received any questions prior to the meeting?
None have been received in writing, Commissioner.
Thank you. Okay, do any members of the public wish to ask questions? Please step forward, state your name and address for the record.
Good afternoon, everybody. Name's Ash Christensen, residing at South Hedland. First question, the report in tonight's agenda states that the depreciation for the JD Hardie Stage 3 is estimated to cost around $128,500 per year. However, the project costs I can see are expected to be 8.7. Can the administration please explain which asset components were included and excluded in the depreciation calculation and thus reveal the capitalised asset value that was actually used to determine the depreciation cost, please?
Thanks for the question. The CEO.
Thank you, Commissioner. Can I just send that question across through corporate service in relation to how those assets are being managed?
We will take this question on notice.
Thank you. Second question?
I'll assume this will be taken on notice too. This would be a preference to what would have come from that. So given that the $9 million asset depreciation over 20 years would normally become a linear depreciation schedule for the life on a normal procedure, my question again then goes, my understanding would be that the depreciation should be upwards of around $300,000 to $400,000 instead of the 150-ish. So having understood that, could also the administration confirm whether that life cycle model presented reflects the full whole of life costs for the project components, which include, in my mind, civil works, shade structures, lighting, CCTV, irrigation, etc. And if not, what the annual depreciation and long-term renewal cost will be to the town. I know you've got it in the actual motion already. I'm just curious to see. To me, doesn't look like it adds up in my mind. So I'm happy to take that on notice again, if you don't mind.
I'll refer that question to the CEO and we'll determine to take it on notice. But I will just say, at the last ordinary council meeting, one of the things I opened the meeting with was suggestions that where particular information is being sought that does require, and if you want an answer on the night for detailed questions, it's really good to be able to give them to us in advance in writing. Let us know that you'd like an answer on the night, and then the officers will do everything they can to get those answers to you. I'll now turn to the CEO.
Thank you, Commissioner. And yes, we'll provide a written response in relation to all those questions we have from the recording.
Cheers. I'll send them through to you as well, so you don't have to try and type them out from my broken jargon I'm speaking up here. Question 3. Given that item 10.1 has been listed as confidential only for the commercial and contractual reasons and without disclosing any confidential information, can the administration please state in general terms what stage of the key worker housing proposal the commissioners are being asked to decide on here tonight? For example, whether you guys are approving concept design approval for DA, or whether you're doing approval for construction, for example, or if there's another stage we're at, so we can understand, because at the moment, from my experience, we normally have the actual motion written down that you would be deciding with just the confidential information retracted. Unfortunately, the information I've read on the website doesn't have any detail at all on what you guys are actually communicating about tonight. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you are determining tonight in the confidential space without going into confidential information, if you can, please.
So this is a very complicated project, and it's incredibly important that it's well governed and that the full financial implications of it are considered by the town of Port Hedland. There are a range of matters up for a decision tonight, and we will be reporting back after we come back into public session on what decisions were actually taken. It's not as simple as there's just a contract before us or not. It is actually quite a complex matter that we do need to go behind closed doors to discuss. But what I would say is please be assured that we're giving very serious consideration to this matter. And as with all things that we're trying to do as commissioners, we are really trying to improve governance and to make sure that the sorts of challenges that were being experienced before around project progression and governance matters and the way that the council works together, we're absolutely trying to improve on that. So we will go behind closed doors. There are a range of decisions that we will take tonight, and we'll be reporting back as soon as we come back into public session. Thanks for the question. Okay, do we have any further questions? Thank you. Come forward, state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, g'day all. John Ashton, South Hedland. Got 3 questions. The first question is, can the Commissioners please identify the specific provision of the Local Government Act or subsidiary legislation that authorises an appointed commission to initiate, fund and operate a large-scale housing program? Noting that housing is a recognised state government responsibility and that this same proposal was previously rejected by an elected council.
Under the Local Government Act, commissioners are appointed and are empowered to exercise all the powers and functions of a council. So it is the Local Government Act that authorises us to consider proposals presented by the administration, and that is exactly what we're doing. Your second question?
Can you give me the specific provision?
Well, I'll take that on notice, but I would encourage you to have a look at the provisions of the local government. I can't recall them off the top of my head, but there's a very specific part of the Local Government Act that talks about commissioners, and it says that commissioners have all the powers that a council has. So insofar as councils have the ability to look into the proposals that we're considering tonight, then we are empowered to do so, and that is exactly what we're doing. Okay. And I would add, responding to considering.
I just want the legend.
I will say, I have the chair. I have the chair. I have. You've asked a question. I'm providing you with an answer. You may not like my answer, but you're nonetheless getting one. So we are responding to a community need that is very well identified, strongly felt, that consistently comes up. We will consider the options that are put before us behind closed doors tonight, and as I've said before, we will then report back when we come back into public session. So if you'd like to go ahead now and ask your second question, thank you.
Given this matter was previously debated and voted down in an open session, can the Commissioners confirm whether any contractor, developer, financier or delivery partner has already been identified or engaged in discussions? And if so, how this does not constitute predetermination and a breach of procedural fairness to the ratepayers?
As I've outlined, as Commissioners, we have the ability to consider recommendations that are made to us by the administration. We are doing that as we are empowered to under the Local Government Act. This is a project that's been in development for a number of years. There are recommendations before us that we will consider in closed session tonight, and then we will report back.
So you can't confirm any of the developers or contractors or anything that have been done?
There are confidential matters that are before the Commission or before the Council this evening. I've explained to you the process. We will be going behind closed doors.
Sounds dodgy, but anyway. Question 3. Can the Commissioner state for the public record who will be legally and financially responsible for long-term maintenance, insurance and liability, vacancy risks, rental collection and enforcement, and cost overruns, and confirms whether ratepayers will carry that risk if the state withdraws funding or policy support?
As you quite rightly point out, this is a complicated project. It absolutely is, and our intention is to ensure that it is progressed in a way that where the governance is managed appropriately and the financial implications for the town are fully considered. We will be going behind closed doors tonight to discuss all sorts of matters.
Okay,
and so please be assured that, that we will be giving these matters a good airing, and we will report back after we've come out of closed session. Thank you very much for your questions. Do we have any further questions? Please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Commissioners and Administration. Adrian McRae from Lehigh Street in Wedgfield. While we're on the topic of the key worker housing, I just thought I'd continue. Since nothing's been published, no information's been published pertaining to the agenda, item 10.1 of key worker housing, I've had to make some general assumptions about what you might be debating tonight and potentially deciding on based on the Town of Port Hedland's request for proposal 2425-01, the key worker housing design and construct advertisement in the newspaper, which was in tonight's special council meeting supporting documentation. So the original business plan that the administration presented to us on the council a couple of years ago showed 116 separate units to be built at a cost of no greater than $40 million, of which the town was responsible to contribute $10 million, so 25% of the entire build cost. The other $30 million was to be funded by the state government, the federal government and industry. Obviously, you'd need a business plan to even begin considering next steps before debating significant expenditure decisions on behalf of the people of Town of Port Hedland. So my first question, have you as commissioners been given an updated business plan, or has an updated business plan been approved for advertising by the council or by your commissioner group and subsequently circulated to the public for public comment?
I refer you to the previous answers that I've provided. There are a range of matters that are coming before the Commissioners this evening for our decision and consideration, and we'll report back once we've come out of closed session. Okay.
Question 2. During my brief term on council, the administration presented myself and fellow councillors many and varied alternate costing options for us to potentially invest in key worker housing proposals. As I mentioned earlier, the initial business plan proposed over 100 apartments for a total town expenditure of around about $10 million. This initial proposal eventually came down to 40 apartments, while the overall potential costs to the town went up to over $70 million. So my question is, again, because we don't have information in the meeting documents, with such enormous discrepancies and variations from the original business plan, are you as commissioners aware that under the Local Government Act 1996, section 3.59, part 6, requires a new business plan for proposals that are significantly different to the original for projects that are over $2 million or 10% of the maximum town's rates income? That's, in case you need, that's Reg 9 of the LG Function and General Regulation 1996.
I refer you to my previous answers. This project will be managed and will be considered by us with governance and financial implications firmly in mind. We're very aware of the provisions of the Local Government Act that determine how we behave as a council, our requirements to consider the full provisions of the Act. We'll be going behind closed doors this evening to consider a range of matters, and we'll report back once we've come out of closed doors. But thank you. I do appreciate that in your brief time as councillor, this was something that you did consider. So thanks for giving us a bit of that history, Mr McRae.
Yeah, look, and apologies for maybe abrupt questions, just that without any information in the documents, usually would see what the agenda items would have an understanding of what it is you're debating with all the, the names and dollar figures taken out, so the town would actually know what you're discussing. So without knowing what you're discussing, it's hard to know what questions to ask. I do have one final question. So considering statements made by the sitting state government, such as Minister Dawson's comments in the North West Telegraph in late August, who stated that the government could not make good on their Port Hedland election commitments because we allegedly had a dysfunctional dysfunctional council. As you'd no doubt be aware, the state government's election commitment to Port Hedland was $10 million for key worker housing. So are you, as commissioners, seriously going to consider spending tens of millions of dollars of Port Hedland ratepayers' money to help the state government fulfil an election promise for key worker housing, which is supposed to be a 100% state government obligation and thereby 100% funded by the state government to build?
So there are a range of matters that are before us this evening. Please be assured we continue to engage with state and federal government, and we are very mindful of the need to respond to community needs. So there's a range of things we'll consider behind closed doors tonight, and obviously engaging with all levels of government and with industry about how to respond to such a critical need in Port Hedland is front of mind for us. Thank you very much. Are there any further questions? Please state your name and address.
Thank you. Camilo Blanco, Harwell Way, Wedgefield. In relation to 8.5.2, the appointment of the presiding and deputy member of the CEO Recruitment Committee, noting that the acting CEO is eligible to apply for the substantive role, and the comments that were made by yourself, the chair, at the time of appointing the acting CEO, can the commissioners outline the governance and probity arrangements in place to ensure the recruitment process is independent and free of any actual or perceived bias?
The recruitment process that we've adopted is consistent with the requirements under the Local Government Act, the Local Government Regulations, the Town of Port Hedland's local laws, the Town of Port Hedland's CEO recruitment policy, and the Town of Port Hedland's terms of reference for the CEO recruitment process. So we are complying with the legal requirements set down at both a state government level and a local law government level and a local government level.
Thanks. Given the importance of the ongoing working relationship between the CEO and the incoming mayor and councillors in March, has consideration been given to deferring the substantive CEO appointment until after the election so new councillors can have confidence in and ownership of that appointment?
We have considered a range of ways of approaching this issue, and I will say it's been quite a torturous process, to be honest with you, Mr Blanco, and hence the reason why tonight we are appointing the chair and the deputy chair of the CEO committee, because it's taken us quite some time to get into a situation where we think a decision could be taken. The decision is an incredibly important one and has fundamental implications for the stability and ongoing functions of the town of Port Hedland. One of the big factors that we weighed into on this decision was the fact that the last council, for 12 months, was incapable of even forming a committee to make a decision. And in fact, even when there was a proposal put forward that the whole council sit on the committee, the council couldn't even agree on that. So what we don't want to end up in is a situation where for the next 12 months, a newly elected council isn't even capable of forming a committee, when you consider just how important it is that, that administration is well led by a highly qualified appointee. So these are grave and very serious decisions that we are certainly not taking lightly at all. We have done a nationwide search. There was the original advertisement for the CEO position. We decided to re-advertise to see if there was anybody else out there that might be interested in applying for the position. We've had a very strong field of candidates come forward. We have been interviewing candidates, and we are at the point in time where we do think that we may make decisions around appointment of a suitable CEO. Recognising that this has been an open, weeping sore in the town of Port Hedland for long enough. The folk we've got working here, we've got some fantastic staff. They have been leaderless without a permanent CEO for long enough. And it is perhaps a bit of an indictment on the previous council that they were unable to even form a CEO recruitment committee. And we do not want to leave the future town of Port Hedland council rudderless. We want to do the very best we can to try and steady the ship, get good leadership in place, and try and recruit someone who we hope will be able to work with the new council, who is experienced and capable of steadying the ship.
Thank you. In your first meeting, you stated that you would be running the process and then leaving it to the new council to select the substantive CEO. I have sent you a series of questions in November, which I just got the answers to today at about 12:30, and again, you didn't answer the question. I asked specifically whether you were going to appoint a CEO, contrary to what you stated in your first meeting. And your answers were, it was either the incoming council or the commissioners may appoint a CEO, which clearly doesn't answer the question. So, from what you've just said, can you tell me that you are now deciding that you're going to appoint a new a substantial CEO before the council is elected in March?
What I will say to you, as you well know, given a previous line of your inquiries, I can't foreshadow that a decision that council's going to take ahead of a particular council meeting. Those decisions are taken in specifically convened council meetings with resolutions and recommendations put before them. That was a point that you made to us previously, Mr Blanco, so I'd refer you to your previous submissions to us with respect to the appointment of the acting CEO. Now, as I was at pains to explain earlier this evening, the Local Government Act gives us as commissioners the powers of council. The powers of council allow us to appoint a CEO, provided we follow the process, and it is open to us as a council at any time to have a look at what the organisation needs, to run a process and to make decisions accordingly. That is exactly what we are A, empowered to do, and B, intending to do. Now, when we came on board, there were a whole range of options available to us. What we did was have a look at the way that the organisation was structured and is operating, had a look at the history, how the previous council had tried to go about resolving this incredibly important issue for the town, had a look at what the impact that was on both the way that the organisation functioned, all the projects that potentially could be done, and we've decided to go down a pathway to set ourselves up so we can make decisions as we see fit. Those decisions have not been made right now. They will be made, as you have rightly pointed out in the past, when the agenda item comes before council. So we will absolutely comply with the Local Government Act. What I can assure the people of the town of Port Hedland is this: we will be making decisions that we think and that we are genuinely trying to take that is in the best interest of the people of Port Hedland, trying to reinstate good governance, trying to demonstrate what a functional council can achieve when it has the interests of the people of Port Hedland front and centre. We're not here to pursue personal gripes or vendettas or to have open war in council sessions. We're here to do the business of good governance for Port Hedland. And if in our view that involves recruiting a high quality CEO that's going to be able to govern or to be able to administer the town of Port Hedland well, then that decision is open to us and we will take it in accordance with the Local Government Act. Thank you for your questions. Are there any further questions? Thank you. Please state your name and address for the record.
Yep, thank you. Merrin Browning and South Hedland. So this question is aligned with a few of the others. So what has materially changed since the elected council rejected this proposal that justifies reversing the decision in regards to the key workers village? And where is the documented evidence supporting that change?
As I said, I refer you to the answers that I've provided previously this evening. There's a whole range of matters that have come before us. This is the first time that this matter has come before us as commissioners. There's a whole series of things that we need to go through tonight. But what I will say is that whilst there is history, they were decisions of previous councils, very different set of dynamics, very different set of information in front of the previous council. This is a project that's been brought to this council. We will consider it on its merits, as I say, with a firm, clear-eyed view of good governance and the financial implications for the town of Port Hedland.
Yep, thanks. Given that you are here to steer the ship in the right direction under good governance, and that the community is keen not to repeat past mistakes of the same inherent distrust created when a previous commissioner in 2019 wrote off approximately $80 million in unpaid back rates from big industry. So why should town of Port Hedland ratepayers now be expected to commit around $60 million to service worker housing, a function traditionally delivered by the state, while the state contributes only a fraction of the cost?
There's a lot to that question. Firstly, we're obviously not the previous commissioner, and I'm certainly not familiar with the actions in detail that Commissioner Riebling undertook. What I will say is, why trust us now? Because we are putting an appropriate governance structure around the progression of this particular project. And we have a range of decisions to make this evening, a range of considerations that are in play, and we are doing that. We will report back to the public on exactly what the way forward is for the project when we come out of our session tonight. But I will say the number one, other than governance issues that I think are on the minds of the people of Port Hedland, which they've overwhelmingly spoken to us about every time we've had some sort of an interaction. The number two issue that the people of Port Hedland raised with us is the need for housing. People are crying out for it. And I think that there is a great opportunity for industry and all levels of government to work together to try and address what is an incredibly pressing need up here. We're listening very carefully to the feedback that we get from people and seeing what we can do to try and address that situation moving forward.
Yeah. Still a state government responsibility. How have you actively managed and documented the risk of apprehended bias, given your prior professional connections to senior state ministers and the state's unmet election commitment tied directly to this project?
It's no secret that I was the Parliamentary Secretary to the Premier. I worked in 14 different ministerial portfolios as a Parliamentary Secretary. I was a Member of Parliament for 8 years, so of course I have relationships with existing cabinet ministers. I've also got great relationships with members of the opposition. We are bound to disclose conflicts of interest, and I will, of course, comply with conflicts of interest policies. There are none to declare with respect to this particular item that will come before the council later on this evening in closed session.
Right. Thank you.
Are there any further questions? Thank you. Come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Renee Coles, Green Place, South Hedland. First up, I do wish to wish all the staff a safe and Merry Christmas, especially over the festive season. As we all know, Town of Port Hedland does not stop working, and especially too for the JD Centre, because you'll be inundated with, I dare say, a lot of kids. So hopefully you guys stay safe during that period of time. Whereas I fully support the urgent need for key housing work in Port Hedland, our community depends on it. However, this cannot come at the expense of ratepayers and financial wellbeing. We all recognise the critical shortage of housing, but we also know there are many vacant homes in Hedland that could be refitted and made available far more quickly and cost effectively with the financial support backing of the federal and state governments. How does the town plan to keep the community informed about major decisions and financial commitments related to key working housing, especially when parts of this process are kept confidential?
So, as I say, this is the first time that the project has been brought before this council. We have a range of matters that are before us tonight for consideration with respect to this particular project. Your question goes to a whole range of broader matters to do with housing. The town administration is currently working on a housing strategy that will also be brought to council, where we will be considering housing across the town of Port Hedland, not just with respect to this particular project. Of course, that involves engaging with state and federal governments on that issue. So watch this space. There will be a housing strategy coming before council that will be published as part of the agenda papers. It is technically out of scope for this meeting for us to go into where that's actually at, because we do need to confine questions to what's on the agenda tonight. But please, if you want to bring that question back to us, you're very welcome to. And I understand that the housing strategy is not too far away. So these broader issues about derelict housing and how we work with state and federal government will come up again for council's consideration.
Thank you. Next question. Has the town received any formal correspondence or commitments from state or federal governments regarding additional funding for this project? If so, can these be made public?
As I've said to you, there's a range of matters for consideration before the council this evening. When we go behind closed doors, we will come back and report on the decisions that we've made behind closed doors, and we'll be in a position to provide further information in future.
And the next one more than likely has been asked in a roundabout way. What aspects of the contract or commercial information require confidentiality, and how does disclosure risk harming the public's interest or third parties?
All tender processes that the town of Port Hedland undertake are commercially sensitive. They're part of the matter before us tonight does involve a procurement process. It is ordinary course of business that those sorts of matters be considered behind closed doors. This is a very complex project. There are a lot of moving pieces to it, so it's important that when we're considering the specific contracts that have something to do with this, with a range of different parties, that we do keep those deliberations in confidence.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Please state your name and address.
Good evening, Gillian Fisher, South Hedland. I just have some questions again about the CEO recruitment process. Commissioner Shaw, you spoke just now or earlier in one of the other questions that you've been interviewing CEO candidates, but I'm not quite sure how you are able to do that if you don't have a CEO selection committee. How does that work?
Okay, so if you have a look at the Town of Port Hedland's, the terms of reference for the committee, it does say that the committee can meet in what's called, they can hold informal meetings. So if you, like, it's quite a package of stuff to get through, but the terms of reference very specifically say informal meetings can be held for the purposes of receiving advice from recruitment consultants about a broad field, about shortlisting and even interviewing. A formal committee meeting is held to take decisions. So it's only when you get to the point where you actually where the rubber hits the road and decisions are being made, that you actually need the committee, the formal committee of council needs to meet. And so the committee will make decisions. In those decisions will be a series of recommendations to council, and then council considers those recommendations and again, makes decisions. So at the moment, we've been doing a whole heap of informal meetings to understand where have we come from, what's the field, get information about the candidates, interview candidates, but we're not at the point where we're making decisions. So tonight we will be appointing a chair and a deputy chair. We'll then be convening a formal meeting of the CEO committee where that committee can resolve to provide a report to council. That's how the process works. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a lot more clearer, thank you.
No problem.
And just regarding the same CEO recruitment committee, you did spend quite an amount of time speaking about the previous council and how that they lacked the cohesion to follow up on the process of selecting a new CEO. I think you mentioned 12 months or something. I'm just asking, have the commissioners themselves reviewed the minutes of each meeting where this subject has arisen, and have they actually read that the previous mayor himself alone was restricting progress on employing a new CEO in that position?
So we have reviewed the minutes. We've also had lengthy conversations with the CEO, the recruitment consultant that was involved in those processes. So we've had quite a lengthy series of discussions actually on how did we get here, and also discussions on, well, do we go back out to market? So yeah, the documentation has been all stored in an area of the Town of Port Hedland where it's locked down. Only the commissioners can access it, and an executive officer that helps us with all the administration. We've been right through that and had a look at how we got here. So yeah, we've gone right through the history of this, which is why, as I say, it's so important that we try and get a resolution.
Okay, so on the key worker housing things, you mentioned that ratepayers have spoken to you, and they you think that the key worker housing is a specific problem that the council needs to address. Ratepayers have also cried out for a decrease in rates and council expenses. Can you please tell me why the commissioners have focused on key worker housing to further a project that's clearly out of the remit of this council?
Well, firstly, I don't accept the premise of your question. I think that there is, or the premise of the final part of your question, that's your opinion, and obviously you're entitled to it, and I respect that, but I don't accept that premise. It's incumbent on all, when you've got an issue that is so incredibly pressing, it's incumbent on all levels of government to try to work together to solve a problem that is massive for Port Hedland. I think that we probably suffer from it more acutely than many other regional areas. We, as I say, this evening are going behind closed doors to consider the financial impacts on the Town of Port Hedland. One of the matters that we are considering this evening. Earlier this year, when we passed the budget, again we were very focused on the rating outcome. It's in a cost of living environment. It's obviously rates are a considerable issue. So are weekly rents of $850 a week when you're on maybe $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year as a hairdresser or a barista or a mechanic, or so there are a range of cost of living pressures that are out there. Rates is one component. Rent is the number one issue that people raise with us as a huge cost of living issue. So I don't know how many people on 70 grand a year can afford $850 a week for a one-bedroom unit. Thank you for your questions. Are there any further questions? There being no further questions, I declare public question time closed at, by my watch, 6:10 p.m. Public statement time. I declare public statement time open at 6:10 p.m. Do we have any public statements? Please come forward, state your name and address.
Thank you, Camillo Blanco from Harwell Way. I didn't prepare anything, I've just written some notes down from tonight, but Commissioner Shaw, you asked at the very start of the meeting whether there was any financial interest from anybody, and there was no comment there from either commissioners or staff. And I've talked about this before previously, because the staff have advised us that staff members don't need to state if they have a financial interest in an item that's before the council. Okay, it's not written in the Act. The Act is silent on it. But I think what you need to do is read the Employee Code of Conduct, and the Employee Code of Conduct is quite specific. It states in there that employees will abide by the financial interest requirements of the Act as an employee. And it also is specific in there that every employee must do that. Now, this came up at the last CEO selection, acting CEO selection thing, and the acting CEO we had here did not declare an interest, and obviously went on and chaired the meeting, even though he did have a direct interest in the matter. So I question the advice that's being issued to council members, because it's quite clear in the Employee Code of Conduct that a interest must be declared by the member. And in the item tonight that I spoke about in relation to the CEO Recruitment Committee, it states in there that the acting has a financial interest. So, you know, I would suggest, according to the Code of Conduct and whatever, that, you know, we abide by the rules. Now, in relation to the business plan for the housing, or the service workers' housing, I don't believe it's a complex issue at all. I think it's quite basic. There must be a business plan issued to the council. The council must then approve that business plan and then take it out for public comment. Obviously that's happened previously, but the proposal that we are talking about now, that's been advertised in the paper, is significantly different to what has been proposed previously. So another business plan needs to be implemented before a decision on any service workers' housing is decided on. Now, quite a few times tonight, it's been mentioned that the council, you know, did not or could not put a selection committee together for the CEO's selection, and that is true. But if you have gone through all of the documents, you would have seen that, there was a clear bias in, a couple of members of council, and also,
You have 1 minute.
And also that the administration did not do its job and follow the Local Government Act by forcing.
Mr Camillo, I just warn you, just around the use of your language, I can rule statements out of order that cast aspersions on administration or other previous councillors. So I just would warn you about your language. Thank you. It's a warning.
Yeah, thanks. And in that case, then I wouldn't like to hear any more about the carry-on of the council, because it puts a bad light on all of us when not all of us were creating an issue in relation to the selection of the committee. And now, I don't want to hear any more blame going to the council members in reference to this.
And your time is up. Do we have any further public statements? Please come forward and state your name and address.
G'day, John Ashenden, South Headland. You're probably getting sick of seeing the same mob here, but we're the ones that show up. So all the other ratepayers that you continually talk about can't even be bothered to come here. But anyway, tonight's agenda includes key worker housing proposal, a matter that was already considered and rejected by a democratically elected council in an open session. Housing is not a local government function. It is a state government responsibility. That has not changed. What has changed is that elected representatives have been removed and an unelected commissioner now control ratepayers' funds without a public mandate. Bringing back a defeated proposal in a closed meeting under the jurisdiction of possible contracts raises serious concerns of predetermination and governance overreach. This proposal reportedly exposes the town to costs approaching in the tens of millions of dollars, money that does not belong to the commissioners, administrators, the state, but the ratepayers. There has been no public consultation, no community mandate, no election, and no clear explanation of who carries long-term financial and legal risks. Decisions of this magnitude should not be made behind closed doors by an appointed body. If this proceeds, it sets a dangerous precedent that unelected administrators can override past council decisions, assume state functions, and commit future generations of ratepayers without consent. This community deserves transparency, accountability, and respect, not secrecy. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any further public statements? Please state your name and address for the record.
Maren Browning, South Headland, thank you. I'm saying this without prejudice. Let's be clear, this is not an allegation of corruption, misconduct or personal financial gain. It's something more uncomfortable, a test of independence. A reasonable, fair-minded observer might pause when a proposal rejected by an elected council is revived and likely approved by appointed commissioners for a project that overwhelmingly benefits the state while asking local ratepayers to shoulder a long-term bill approaching $60 million. That pause gets longer when the state has failed $10 million election commitment riding on the outcome. The elected council was removed, commissioners were appointed by the same state government, and the function in question, service worker housing, is traditionally a state responsibility, not a local one. No one is suggesting commissioners are cashing in, but independence isn't about pockets, it's about judgment. Good governance requires more than trust us. It requires an evident and intelligible justification for why local ratepayers should underwrite what is fundamentally a state obligation, and why this decision is materially different from the one an elected council already rejected. Transparency means answering hard questions, not sidestepping them. Accountability means explaining why local government is being asked
You
to
have
solve
45 seconds.
solve a state problem, again with local money. This isn't about motive, it's about whether the process passes the sniff test. And right now, the room smells like less like governance and more like politics being paid for by ratepayers. Ultimately, commissioners are not appointed to advance state outcomes or rescue unmet election promises. They are required to exercise independent judgment and owe a duty of fidelity to act solely in the best interests of the town and its ratepayers. This is the standard, that is the expectation, and that is what the decision must be measured against tonight. And furthermore, aspirations are a two-way street. You freely throw aspirations to previous council members, so please consider this when you are responding.
And your time has expired. Do we have any further public statements? Do we have any further public statements? Thank you. Please come forward and state your name for the record and your address.
Good afternoon, Ash Christensen again from South Hedland. I want to begin by confirming that I strongly support the concept, again, of the pump track here in Hedland. However, the proposal before us raises more serious concerns about whether this project is truly meeting the needs of the community or whether it is being shaped, as was stated previously in an OCM by a member of the admin, to meet the wow factor expectations of a few. This resulting in yet another gold-plated facility rather than a fit-for-purpose facility that is financially sustainable. I must also highlight that the town has consistently struggled to activate, resource and maintain existing recreational assets. Adding another high-cost facility without addressing these concerns, in my opinion, risks repeating the pattern of an impressive capital delivery followed by inadequate operational support. I raise this statement here because you will be putting a tender forward today, and as I raised this previously in other meetings, you never really spoke through to any of those points. So I encourage commissioners, if they wish to talk through any of those points. I'm interested to hear your take on it. But before I close tonight, I also want to acknowledge item 10.1, the key worker housing proposal. I ask that the commissioners to consider one very simple comparison. The Regional Capitals Alliance WA Investment Prospectus, which identifies 4 similar housing projects across member councils. In every one of these examples, local governments contribute anywhere between 10 and 17% of the total project costs. Yet the key worker housing project linked to Port Hedland requires our ratepayers to fund more than 70% of that project. How does that add up? How can such an agreement be viewed as sound financial governance when every comparable regional local government authority contributes less than 20%? And further, I'm left bewildered that our own business plan states one price, yet the lobbying group, the RCAWA, we fund, is particularly promoting a completely different number. This inconsistency raises real questions about accountability, trust and alignment between the town and organisations representing us. To date, the administration has remained silent when these concerns have been raised. So I ask the commissioners here tonight directly, will you do the same? Or will you require a clear and accountable explanation before committing Hedland ratepayers to such an extraordinary financial burden? And most importantly, will you share these findings with the community before decisions are actually made? Thank you.
Those questions can be put to us in question time. Are there any further public statements? Yes, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
Renee Coles, Green Place, South Hedland. Standing here before you tonight as a concerned resident, long-term resident and ratepayer, to express my support for initiatives that improve our community, such as key worker housing. However, I'm increasingly worried about the potential financial burden, and that's financial burden because I don't have a high-paying job. I'm a low-income earner, So I'm not someone that's sitting out there. I dedicate a fair bit of my own money towards community events and happily donate to the town of Port Hedland at community events. So I'm not someone who's on a high income. And these scale projects can actually financially break families. So I do stand here before you tonight, and I do, as a ratepayer and a mother, and having children, respectively ask you to re-look at this key working housing project on the financial implications it's going to have on us long-term financially. Our rates are going to go up. To go ahead and get key people in to do maintenance work on these are going to put a burden. South Hedland Skate Park, great facility. However, how much money gets blown down the drain at that facility, cleaning it all the time? It's lived in by people who throw rocks at our cars as we try to drive by to be able to go to work. So yes, I'm not a high income earner. And financially, this could end up breaking a lot of families and tearing families apart. There is a financial burden potentially heading towards a ratepayer's way. So I'm standing before you here tonight to express this to you. I'm not against key working housing. I'm against the financial burden that I am going to receive. My parents, eventually, local people are not going to afford to be able to live here. So your key working housing are going to benefit what? Staff, whoever's left here? Because people can't afford. Our rates are already high enough. The financial cost of burden of living here is high enough. And all you're doing is putting more financial strain upon us, the ratepayers of this town who live here, who give so much back to the community.
Thank you for your comments. As I've said to you, the financial implications of this project will be something that we'll be very carefully considering. The impact on rates is something that we will be very carefully considering, and obviously weighing it against the incredible and, significant impost that rent has to the people of Port Hedland as well. So these are all live matters that we're very cognizant of and that we are considering very carefully. Like I say, when we go behind closed doors tonight, there's a whole range of matters that we're considering as part of the first time that this project is actually being brought before Council for consideration. So thank you for your comments. Are there any further public statements? There being no further public statements, I declare public statement time closed at 6:28 p.m. Okay, questions from commissioners without notice. Are there any questions from the commissioners?
No.
Okay, thank you. Announcements by presiding member without discussion. The only thing that I will say is that I hear loud and clear what the commentary that's been offered tonight. There's a lot of assumptions that have been made about what's before us tonight, and based on the project that was before council some years ago. That is not what we're being asked to consider tonight. There are a whole range of considerations, and as I say, when we come back from behind closed doors, we'll advise what decisions have been taken, and be very happy to then answer questions at subsequent council meetings about those decisions. Item 7. Declarations of commissioners to have given due consideration to all matters contained in the business paper before the meeting. I invite all commissioners to declare by a show of hands they've given due consideration to all matters contained within the agenda. Thank you. Item 8. 8.1.1 Minutes of the Special Audit Risk and Compliance Committee meeting held on the 10th of August 2025 and financial year 24-25 audited financial statements. We have two recommendations before us as displayed on the screen. Both require a simple majority vote. Recommendation 1, can I have a mover?
I move the recommendation 1.
Thank you, Commissioner Aldridge, and a seconder?
I second the recommendation 1.
Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
No.
Okay, as the motion is not opposed, I declare the motion carried by a simple majority. Moving to recommendation 2, can I have a mover?
So move recommendation 2.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurovic, and a seconder?
I second the recommendation.
Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Aldridge.
Yeah, I think I just want to put on the record my thanks to our auditors, but in particular our town staff who have been through the audit process this year. It's often a difficult time of the year, that is audit season, and I appreciate the efforts that they have put on meeting the requirements of the audit and completing the audit in a timely fashion.
Thank you, Commissioner Aldridge. As the motion is not opposed, I declare the motion carried by a simple majority. Item 8.4.1, Award of Tender, RFT 252610, JD Hardie Youth and Community Hub Masterplan Stage 3. We have two recommendations before us as displayed on the screen that require an absolute majority and a simple majority vote. Officers' recommendation number 1, can I have a mover?
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you, and a seconder?
I second the recommendation 1.
Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
Yes, I will.
Thank you, Commissioner Aldridge.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And this is obviously a result of a decision that we took in October to go out to market and seek applications for the tender with respect to JD Hardie Stage 3. I think I spoke at that meeting, and I won't reiterate the comments that I made at that meeting, but I think that this project does have significant community support, and it actually has had quite a long gestation period as well. And I look at the report that was put to Council in October, the JD Hardie Masterplan goes back to, I think, 2019, and the Stage 3 design was something that was adopted at an ordinary council meeting in December of 2023. So that obviously predates Commissioner's time. In fact, there may be some council members present, former council members present in the gallery this evening that were involved in the adoption of the Stage 3 design, which was unanimously supported by Council at that meeting, 8 votes to 0. And obviously the budget was included in the 2022, 23, 23, 24 and 24, 25 financial years by former councils of the town of Port Hedland. I think we're finally reaching the final stages of delivering Stage 3 of the JD Hardie complex, and obviously there's a further 4th stage to come, which will occur beyond our time here at the town of Port Hedland. But I think this is a great project, and I think when we were considering this issue in October, certainly the advice, and this is something that's been considered over a number of years, is that former councils have challenged the administration to be more ambitious with this project. They wanted something that was actually going to deliver long-term community benefit, but also attract people to Port Hedland, whether they be permanent residents or whether they be visitors to this region. I think it was on the encouragement of former councils that we wanted to leave something, a significant project here for the future residents of the town of Port Hedland. So with those few words, I support the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Aldridge. Commissioner Jurovic, do you wish to make any statements?
No, thanks. Just to back up Commissioner Aldridge's comments, has been on for quite some time with full support of past local government of Port Hedland, so I fully support it.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurovic. As the motion is not opposed, I declare the motion carried by absolute majority. Officer's recommendation number 2 is as displayed on the screen. Can I have a mover?
So moved, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurovic. And a seconder?
I second the motion.
Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
No, thank you.
As the motion is not opposed, I declare the motion carried by simple majority. The preferred tenderer is Byblos Constructions Proprietary Limited. Item 8.5.1, the acceptance of the 2024-25 annual report and setting the date of the annual general meeting of electors. We have an officer's recommendation as displayed on the screen that requires an absolute majority vote. Can I have a mover?
I move the recommendation.
Thank you, Commissioner Aldridge. And a seconder?
I second 851.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurovic. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
Thank you.
No, thank you.
As the motion is not opposed, I declare the motion carried by absolute majority. Item 8.5.2, we have an officer's recommendation as displayed on screen. Commissioner Aldridge, I understand you wish to move an amendment to this motion?
Yes, I'd like to move the officer's recommendation in amended form. That is the insertion of Jessica Shaw in 1 and Martin Aldridge in 2.
Can I have a seconder for that motion?
I will second that amendment.
Thank you, Commissioner Jurovic. So we have the officer's recommendation as amended before us for appointment for the position of presiding member and for the position of deputy presiding member. Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
No, I think it speaks for
No,
itself.
thank you.
Thank you. As the motion is not opposed, I declare the motion carried by absolute majority. Item 9, there is no new business of an urgent nature. Item 10, matters for which the meeting may be closed, confidential matters. At this time, I'd like to move that council close. Oh, Ken, do you want to move? Do you want to do your thing now? Or?
I guess you could. I suppose it was probably the last item we've moved on, but I guess.
Yeah, actually.
Yeah,
sorry.
The issue is we're behind closed doors.
Okay.
We need to make sure that Commissioner Jurovic can make a declaration under 14 D6 that he's able to participate and make sure the information remains confidential. I've sent something to him that he can read aloud.
Okay, so do we close in this? Does he do that before we close doors?
Thanks, Chair.
Just a moment, Commissioner Jurovic. We're just working through the process. Just bear with us, sorry.
Through the chair, the issue, what the regulations say is if before considering the item, so you could actually go behind closed doors, and then ask him to read that aloud.
Okay.
So as long as we've got a record.
Okay.
Okay, all right. So at this time, I'd like to move that council close the meeting to members of the public as prescribed in section 5.232 of the Local Government Act 1995 to consider item 15.1 key worker housing proposal. So I have moved that. Can I have a seconder?
I'll second the motion.
Thank you, Commissioner Aldridge. As the motion is not opposed, I declare the motion carried by simple majority. I ask that all members of the public, with the exception of officers of the Town of Port Hedland, leave chambers at this time, but you're welcome to remain in the lobby until council reconvenes. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I would now like to read the decision of council on the confidential matter discussed for item 15.1 key worker proposal. The resolution of council is as follows. That council, 1, confirm its support for the intent and urgency of the key worker housing project. 2, direct the CEO to contact all tenderers to request a 90-day extension to the tender validity period of RFP 242501. 3, direct the CEO to develop a staged and prioritised program of work to include the following matters. A, operating and management model options. B, allocation methodology and eligibility framework. C, Residential Tenancies Act exposure and risk mitigation. D, funding optimisation and co-investment opportunities. E, housing typology mix. And F, timeframe for delivering work programs. 4, request that the existing business case dated December 2025 be updated in light of the matters listed in item 3. And 5, pursuant to section 6.8 of the Local Government Act 1995, increase the 25-26 annual budget to facilitate the purchase of lot 5996 Cottier Drive, South Henland. That motion was carried by an absolute majority. We advise that we did not consider the officer's recommendation because we require the additional information. Moving to item 11. The date of the next meeting of the ordinary meeting of council will be Wednesday, 28th of January 2026, commencing at 5:30 p.m. I thank commissioners, members of the public, the CEO and the staff particularly tonight for your attendance. There being no further business, I declare the meeting closed at 8:28 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you.